but all those we encounter. Okay, so first of all, welcome back. We haven't really been anywhere, but been very busy. It's been a very busy couple of weeks, and so very honoured to have had the most venerable Khenso Rinpoche, Jada Rinpoche, to be able to bestow teachings, and his presence in Western Australia, his presence in Perth. How wonderful. Connecting with our communities, and yeah, and indicating that he will be back after many requests. So that's a wonderful thing. So that we didn't have an opportunity this time to make that connection. I think a lot of us did. Then hopefully all the conditions come together for a future opportunity. And just mentioning, because Jada Rinpoche is very close to Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and when Lama Zopa Rinpoche passed, he was one of the very, very quickly to write a swift return prayer as well. So in the collection that we have, one is also by Jada Rinpoche. Thank you. Okay, so here we are in the midst of samsara, in the midst of suffering, but wait, there's good news. So we're up to looking at the third noble truth, the truth of cessation, that brings this state of nirvana, of peace, of the so-called here the unbinding, a release from bondage. So I'll just refer to some verses from the Guru Puja. So we have in the Guru Puja, we have the Lamrim prayer that, anyway, goes through the whole of, so here we are in the middle scope, so the training the mind in the common path of the middle capable being. Yeah. So in the Guru Puja, developing the wish for liberation is violently tossed amidst waves of karma and delusions. So if your experience feels like that, that you're tossed from pillar to post on a daily or minute-by-minute basis, welcome to Samsara. Plagued by the many sea monsters of the three kinds of suffering. So here previously we looked at, the suffering of change, the all-pervasive suffering of conditionality, in other words, being inexistent, is the basis for all the other sufferings, and we can impact those further with the 6 types of 8 types, all the different ways of suffering. I seek your blessings to develop an intense longing to be liberated. So it does take quite a lot of effort to want to be free of these suffering existences, because while we know when we're suffering aches and pain and grief and loss, we know we're suffering, we definitely don't want that. When it's nice and cushy and cruisy and everything seems to be, going well, we just want more of that, don't we? So it's a bit seductive, to say the least. So I seek your blessings to develop an intense longing to be liberated, from this infinite and frightening great ocean of existence. So if we think about it being like we're drowning in this ocean of one life after another life after another life, being buffeted around, tossed by violently around in the waves, crashing waves and everything. No, in other words, no control, out of control. We're not necessarily out of control, but we have no control over it, or not unless we work very, very hard. And so So I was thinking about this being violently tossed, the ocean analogy and being violently tossed amongst these waves. So we talk about how precious it is having not just a human rebirth, but having all the conditions that we have to study Dharma, want to study Dharma, have it accessible, have these amazing teachers like Jado Rinpoche, Geshe Sherab, Geshe Sultram La, recently Geshe Zopa and so forth, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, all the Lamas online, Lama Zopa Rinpoche's, I'm sure, haven't yet got to the bottom of all the teachings Rinpoche recorded while at Kopan in the last few years, let alone all the rest of them, let alone all the rest. So there's so much that we have available, so that precious human rebirth. And so one of the analogies that's used is that it's as rare as every 100 years, so this is the ocean analogy, the turtle in the ocean buffeted around, not only a turtle, a blind turtle, once every 100 years, pops its head above the water, and the probability of that head coming into a golden yolk. Now, I don't know about you, I don't think I've seen any golden yolks in the ocean.
Do you think it's the sun reflecting ocean yolk?
Let's go with the sun reflecting. We just want to make a golden yolk happen. But a golden yolk, so that itself is rare. So everything about it is rare. They're saying how rare it is, because to give us that sense of how rare our life is, how precious it is, given we've worked so hard in past lifetimes, we don't remember. But the only way the conditions that we have right now have come together is by our stainless prayers, particularly by a practice of ethics, by having taken vows, different levels of vows in past lives, and kept them purely. And when we're finding it hard in this life, just remember you've done it before. You've done it before. I've done it before, I can do it again. Yeah? So, like that. So on the other hand, this is my show and tell moment. I can find where I put the scissors. There are scissors here. Anyone see a pair of scissors down there? No, they're here. Okay. On the other hand, these little blue yolks are very, very common. And what are they doing? Strangling birds in the ocean. These little blue yolks are extremely common. The birds extremely commonly stick their head through and get stuck, right? So as a little bodhisattva practice, easy peasy, demonstration. Now, when it finds its way into the ocean, not quite yet, not ready for the ocean yet, excuse me. I'm not saying it won't do any harm, but it's not going to be strangling some bird.
I actually cut them into threes as per Venerable Thubten's instructions.
Yeah? Did you say better or worse? I thought you said better or worse. I thought, is this a joke?
I may not be.
Yes, so you could cut into three, but in any way, either way, it's not going to it might get stuck in their stomach. Mm-hmm. Better not to even get them in the ocean in the first place. But given the number of these that I cut just in my own house. Yeah. Well, I've yet to see, because we collect all those bottles for out the back, and we've got a few bags next door, and I'm like, I'm yet to see how many of those have got a cut, right? So I think we need a for the lids or for these. I will check and see. Easy thing to do, right? These little things, if we're thinking of other beings, that we can do, which helps us cut the cycle of existence in Samsara, just like that. Easy peasy. Cutting off from the masks, yeah, because the loops as well, they get caught. Yeah. I mean, yeah, those things called masks. Remember?
Yeah, I remember. I was thinking full masks and how I mean.
You were thinking creatively.
Very creatively. Okay, little things we can do, and then we can rejoice. We remembered, and you know, I've contributed to saving a life of a sentient being. Why not? Okay, at least from that danger, and many other dangers in the ocean of samsara. So here, the quote from the Buddha, from the discourse of turning the wheel of Dharma, which was it's called the discourse of the turning of the wheel of Dharma because it was the first teaching, bringing the Dharma into this world system. And thinking that, you know, right now we're in the middle of these 15 days of miracles, where the Buddha performed miraculous deeds when he was challenged by the non-Buddhist, you know, sort of scholars and so forth, to show these what are called magical or miraculous. They're only miraculous because people can't explain them. You could have got a sainthood every single day. I just read it. Miraculous deeds, you get a sainthood, right? You got to have many sainthoods. Anyway, he was beyond sainthood. Yeah. Beyond sainthood, didn't need any. Oh, okay. So there were things like turning arrows into flowers, and I can't remember them all. There is in the Mandala magazine. So if on the FPMT, there's an article that shows each of the days and each of the deeds. And yeah, sorry, I don't have them off the top of my head. I have to always go back and check it out. But you know, a lot of them like that, of something that might be a form of danger becoming something as a form of beauty. So that normally you wouldn't show these capabilities, these skills. And the only thing was that because of these non-Buddhist teachers, that obviously the Buddha could see it was beneficial to do, so that at the end of that day, all then along the way each day, you know, prostrated to the Buddha, and all of their followers then followed the Buddha's teachings as a result. So you do hear about it sometimes with different traditions, where you might see some miraculous deed, and that's usually done because of that, to let's say, not to be like a showy, but if it's going to be beneficial for somebody or somebody's, but usually not seen. I mean, there was in Laudo Lama the story of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's life. Oh, well, you know, Kunsang Yeshe, his previous incarnation, and the finding of Lama Zopa and so forth. And when he was about 7, I think, and they were going for a walk, and it was raining, and he'd been already recognized as the reincarnation of Kunsang Yeshe. And somebody said to him, well, if you're such a great Lama, can you make the rain stop, please? And he did. Oh, no problem. Sun's out. So it's not something you would normally do. But they say that city of control over the weather is one of the easiest ones. to have. So keep working on it. We need it. I mean, climate change, we need it, right? Except we want the rain to start. And has been said, if we, the best thing to do if we're inviting runners is to get them to do things like, working with the weather. And I often think, well, how does that work in terms of the world system and so forth? And I think, well, we humans have created the conditions for global warming that we're experiencing now. It's been the humans who have done that. So it makes sense that it's not inconceivable that you could create the conditions to turn that around. I mean, just as the human population affected by COVID, we saw how very quickly, which was a bit encouraging, that, when planes stopped flying, when people were not travelling about as much, less pollution and so forth, that the earth had an opportunity to start to do a bit of healing. And the beings in there too, while the humans were off getting drunk. No, really, I don't get it. Grog shops were an essential commodity, and places of worship were closed down. And it's like, okay, that's interesting. Right, essential economic, yeah.
But it could be.
But it also,
Societally.
yeah, but it's a short term, isn't it? If you think long term, what also came as a result is a whole lot of social issues. So, yeah, short term. Well, I thought at least there was some effort, that collaboration amongst political leaders showed that at the end of the day, we do care about each other, people's welfare at the end of the day, when crunch comes. Maybe it takes a bit of extreme conditions for that. Okay, and this month is the noble truth of cessation. It is the remainderless fading and cessation of that same craving, the same craving that propels us into existence, craving at existing, craving following the sense to fulfill the pleasures of the senses. Yeah. So this remainderless fading and cessation of that same craving. So it doesn't say that craving will stop immediately. Notice it says fading. The Buddha said fading. So my sense of that is it's sort of like that desire, if we start working on it, we can lessen its power, right? It's not necessarily always going to be, right, that's it, I'm gone cold turkey or whatever it is, but that we can lessen the power of that we can see I have an option here. And so I'm not being so propelled, uncontrolled. I can make a choice. Do I want the chocolate is not the question. Am I going to have it or not? I have a choice, right? Rather than the chocolate's in the mouth and, whatever, out the other end before you even know it. True. We do a lot of that. So this idea of it fading, that we start to, instead of having this grasping, it starts to, open up a bit. And the opposite of grasping is generosity. If I keep opening up and I offer to someone else, that's the opposite mode. Okay. So from all that fading, of course, we have to do a bit stronger measures than fading, but cessation of that same craving. So we're working on a cessation. Maybe it's of a particular craving. For example, if you've given up smoking or you've given up anything that we know how it went from craving to, well, personally, I can say, really have an aversion to being around cigarette smoke at all, So it's gone the other way. But that even at the time, that took time. It wasn't like straight away. Many failed efforts, but never giving up completely, Because what I discovered, I mean, I don't know if anybody else has given up smoking, the process of giving up smoking. So what I discovered was when I would, after a period of time, give way to some idea in my mind that I was going to get pleasure out of it, was so disgusting that I just sort of screw up the rest of the pack and chuck them out. I had to screw them up so that I didn't try and retrieve them later. While that moment of aversion was there. So use the moment of aversion to your will. So the rejecting, just saying, no, I'm not going down that aisle in the supermarket or whatever. No, I won't go into that shop, whatever it is. Relinquishing, that's, sense of letting go, leaving it behind, and renouncing of it. So we talk about this in terms of renunciation, generating a mind of renunciation, which isn't about giving everything up. What are we giving up? The craving, the grasping, the desire. The desire is okay, but when it gets out of control and we're propelled and we can't stop ourselves, well, it's still a choice. That's fine. Make the choice. And on any given day, you might make different choices at any different occasion. So, there might be choices like now, I have to say, being in this Losar period and like yesterday, we had the wonderment of having the Tibetan community here chanting, which I always love. And I just, please come along sometime just to experience it. Even if you think, oh, I don't understand what they're doing. Well, just watch the kids. They're not fussed about it. They just run around and have a good time. And I think that's wonderful to have that freedom. In fact, a couple of the Tibetans were talking about the children and just saying, look how spontaneous we are. How do we lose that? How is it that we're, they're so open and they're so pure and and then we get a bit clunky. And I said, yeah, they're so flexible because their bodies are so flexible. Anyway, so it's well worth coming to just one of the benefits I find here of having that, now it's only the second month. So every third Saturday of the month at 6:30 p.m. and it goes for about an hour, and then there's a sort of food snacks, chatting, whatever. It's very joyful. But all that chanting also brings wonderful energy. All the chanting that we do here, all the practice that we do here, all the listening now, brings such positive energy into this place, and that draws people to it. It drew us, but it creates a positive vibe in the place. So I just think it's wonderful that here we are at Tibetan Buddhist centers, and the Tibetans are starting to own the place, and I think that's fabulous. So let's encourage that and share the joy. Yeah, that's my plug. Come next month. And even don't understand, because yesterday, like the time before, was Tara Puja, followed by the Tara praises. So a lot of people come for the Tara Puja and they go, oh, that's me done. And then other people. But next time the Tara Puja will be on the Saturday. No, on the Sunday. The chanting will be on the Saturday, so that people don't have to feel like, oh, that makes it a long afternoon, evening. Yeah. So anyway.
Last month was after Guru Puja.
Yeah, it was after a puja. Yeah. So both those times have been after a puja in some people's states. So anyway. Okay. Oh yeah, and then I was saying about listening, because what I found over the years, even if I don't understand what's being chanted, so generally they do like the Tara praises, we have it written here. Of course they go fast, but you can start to listen out for verses. And even if you just get the beginning of the 21 and the end of the 21, go, oh, turn back to page 1 again, start at the beginning. But listening out for, rather than, oh, I don't understand, it's all Tibetan, I don't understand, of actually listening out to what you do pick up. And then over years, without even going off and studying it, you pick up a bit more, and it's a little bit joyful. Yeah, quite joyful. So like this, We don't do it all at once. It doesn't all happen just like that. It's not spontaneous. So this idea of renunciation, as it says in the foundation of all good qualities, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, foundation of all good qualities, seeking samsaric pleasures is the door to all suffering. They are uncertain. So samsaric pleasures are uncertain. Why? Because they don't last. They cannot be relied upon. Recognizing these shortcomings, please bless me to generate the strong wish for the bliss of liberation. So this state of nirvana, this state of bliss, which is a reliable, it's when we're free of all of these afflictions, and the mind is very blissful, very joyful all the time. Just like one of the lamas who, great yogi, and when he was going to America for a conference, and His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, if they ask you to describe your experience, you have to tell them. So they did, and he sat there, I abide in immutable great bliss. So it's his whole total experience, immutable great bliss. No, like, oh, well, that was fine until the neighbors, whatever, or the cat or the dog or truck or somebody disturbed my immutable great bliss. No, just abiding there. Okay, much better than our temporary pleasures. This noble truth must be penetrated too. So this idea of, cutting through all our, this is where I go back to, who is it? Sleeping Beauty. I make all these crazy analogies. But Sleeping Beauty, I just stuck in my mind from childhood because it was all the vines and the prince had to cut through all the vines. And I think, if anyone can remember from that childhood, and I was thinking, that's all the afflictions. We've just got thickets, cut through, penetrate through by realizing the cessation of suffering. Much better than a prince's kiss. Apparently they lived happily ever after. Nobody printed the sequel to find out. Okay, so, but yeah, getting through all our tangled vines, cutting through, that's why Manjushu up here has a sword, flaming sword, to cut through with wisdom all of this crazy thicket of obscurations of our affliction. Must be penetrated too by realizing the cessation of suffering. Realizing the cessation of suffering, freedom from suffering. This noble truth has been penetrated too by realizing the cessation of suffering. So basically, we said, I've done it, this is how to do it. So this state of cessation of suffering is called Nirvana. You've heard the name. So that's the Sanskrit name. It means cessation or abandonment of afflictions. So the cessation is what? A cessation of afflictions. A cessation of means abandonment of, means I have to do some work. They don't just fade away of their own accord. I have to actually deliberately say, you know what? I'm not going to get angry when that person does that thing they do to me, because I know they're going to do that thing to me. So I'm prepared with the armor of patience. I'm prepared with love. I'm prepared with, we get our toolkit, Bodhisattva toolkit. So I'm not going to engage that. That's our determination to abandon a disturbing state of mind. Why? Because it doesn't just affect me now, but if we are, whatever understanding of karma we have, it's going to affect me. That actually, my getting angry in that moment, yeah, it's got a toxic fallout now, but whammo, wait till that ripens in future lives when I haven't purified it, and it comes back at me with even greater suffering. If I can't tolerate this, there's a lot more to come. Okay. abandonment of affliction such as craving, that the mind of desire, basically. But it says craving because it's not just, oh, that's a nice sound, or, that's a nice smell, or whatever. It's like, oh, I've got to have it, craving. Mind. Hatred, which is even more intense than anger, isn't it? That's like revenge. That's like creating wars. And ignorance, the ignorance of confusion about reality. We confuse so many things, even at the level of not understanding impermanence. It's so self-evident at one level that everything's impermanent, including ourselves, that we're going to die, don't know when, etc. But that grasping at things as if forever, diamonds are forever, we'll be together forever. I mean, maybe you would be, but just be careful what together means in another lifetime. Together could be mortal enemies. Together could mean you're eating each other for breakfast. Yeah, right, yeah. So don't say that. You may not want to be there. So, if we think of our mind under the control of attachment, hatred, and ignorance, of these three poisons, as we say, the root ones, as being bound and not free, so that we're being bound from those, we're being controlled by them, basically. So we're not free because it hijacks our mind, and our rational mind gets confused, sort of not able to apply logic. And so then we're just caught up in those toxic emotions. Then nirvana is the unbinding of the mind. So it's a really useful thing to think, because that, if we think about what the afflictions do to our mind, this sort of sense of contraction, but we feel that in our body as well. Anger, clench the fist, clench the jaw, everything gets tight. And if we start to relax those, there's this sense of having a sense of freedom. It may not last, but a sense of lightness, a sense of flexibility, because you do have flexibility of the mind, because you introduce the idea of choice, that I have choice. I'm not just tossed here and there by the emotions. The unbinding of the mind. And then, of course, that's very useful in Tantra, because we talk about all these knots in the channels, psychic channels of the body, which is not something a doctor will find in there, a surgeon. They don't open you up and find them, but that it actually, through our practice, like when we do Vajrasattva and we visualize a central channel and two side channels, and this is, when we visualize releasing anger and releasing desire and releasing ignorance, we talk about it as cleansing those channels, as sort of like unblocking, that allows the energy to flow naturally. And this is the stuff of like Tibetan medicine as well, and Chinese medicine as well, Ayurvedic medicine as well. So that gives us moving from a state of contraction to a state of openness, a release from such bondage into freedom. So again, from the Guru Puja, 38. Having abandoned the mind that views this unbearable prison, so this sort of being trapped, being bound, analogous to a prison of cyclic existence, having abandoned mind that views that, in our ignorance, as a beautiful park. And we do have some very beautiful parks in our samsara. I like to say, another gorgeous day in samsara. I seek your blessings to hold the three trainings as the treasure of the Arya's wealth. So the three trainings we'll look at subsequently. So the three trainings is a common training at this level, at this middle scope for all, like across the board for, Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana. So training in ethics, training, getting our body and our speech under control, the training of ethics and of taking vows and holding those vows, and the potency of those vows to, take a vow of no killing, and then even I'm asleep, not even thinking about any being killed or anything like that. I'm just out for the count. I accumulate all that merit of refraining from killing. So all of those things, in whatever levels of vows that we take, and always encouraged to, when we're ready to take more levels of vows. So that level of training mainly is about training our, and this is a small scope practice of training our body and mind, to refrain from doing harm, our body and speech to refrain from doing harm. That's our minimum commitment. Right? Of course, then we say, and if we can, use them to benefit others. That's a Mahayana motivation. Across the board, just zip the lips, sit on the hands, and think, because now we have the choice to think, is this what I'm about to say going to be beneficial? Is it going to be kind? Is it going to be truthful? We have to think like that. Because it could be truthful, could be kind, but is it going to be beneficial? In other words, will the recipient actually, are they ready to hear that? Is it going to go in their ears? If it's not, why waste your breath? And this is what our lamas do. They observe when we're ready for particular instructions and give people instructions accordingly, because their job is to guide us on the path from wherever we're at. Of course, they're not going to say, oh dear, just sit there and, you don't have to do anything. I say, no, kick you up the path a bit. Got to kick you up the path a bit, but not too far, not in leaps and bounds, not so you drown, okay? But yeah, a push. Sometimes the pushes are a bit like, oh, I can't possibly do that. But it's great because then you can, and you think, isn't that wonderful? I've been shown that it was my mind stopping me from doing it, not my capacity. Must be like that in sports training. And it's true, Lama Zopa Rinpoche would say, if we put as much effort into training our mind as all these sports people do, enlightenment. So concentration, the next one. So the idea is that if we control that, our body and our speech, at least at that course level, then we provide the capability, the better conditions for the mind to be able to settle with what we do when we sit to meditate, and we take the time to settle our body down, to settle our speech down, to settle our internal dialogue, so that we can develop a focused mind of concentration. And once we have that, like a laser-like concentration, that's when we apply that to analysis, analytical meditation. That's when we go, okay, what's impermanence? What are the points to think about with impermanence? What are the things to meditate on with death, about death? What are the things to meditate on about karma, etc., etc.? And we apply that laser-like wisdom on top. And when the mind, when we get an aha moment, this mind of concentration, which is already very powerful, can hold that aha there. So I like to think it sinks deeper into your mental continuum, and sort of, giving us a stronger realization, all these little realizations that grow along the way. So that's the three higher training, the treasure of the Arya's wealth. So all those beings who have attained Nirvana have done it by training in those three things. That's how they got there. Right? Those three things, whether they're Mahayana, whether they're Theravada, whether they're Vajrayana training, those three things will get you to Nirvana. Okay? And as such, a release from such bondage of samsara into nirvana. Okay. Any questions, comments? Because we're going to unpack this in much more detail.
So you answer.
Please, never be sorry.
You exist in samsara,
Yeah,
but you're able to transcend it for that
yes.
physically
On
mentally,
the basis of the same body.
on the same body.
Yeah. So it can be beings going around like that yogi going around in immutable great bliss, and other ones going around going, this is a terrible place. Everybody's against me. Yeah, my life sucks. Right? And then there's those of us are somewhere in between. Somewhere in between, yeah, we tend towards that, but we know that's possible. Isn't it? That's where we want to be, but we're not there. But we have glimpses, so we know it's possible. If we didn't have the glimpses, probably wouldn't be here right now. I want to know how to get that. What you've got. Yeah. Of course, you can't stay there because then a Buddha comes along and kicks you up the butt. Enough bliss and emptiness already. Come on. There's other suffering beings. It's not all about you. Right. Okay. So then the presentation on this is the presentation of the 12 links of dependent arising, hence that diagram. That's what that diagram is. So remind me if we've got an image out the front here. Of the,
It's a rolled up one.
oh, we've got a rolled up one in there.
Yeah.
You can, I think we've done a show and tell on that before, if you know where it is.
Have a quick.
So because why there's a rolled up one is because this is the instruction from Geshe Zopa to have on this wall back here. So traditionally in, I'd like have a mural of it. Traditionally in a Tibetan Gompa, they'll have it either just inside or just outside, often just outside the door. And it's a reminder, it's called the Wheel of Life. So all the beings in samsara, so this is samsara here, in the jaws of and the fangs of and claws of Yama, the Lord of Death. I hope it's not yours, but that's okay. So I don't know if that's helpful. But
That's
anyway,
it in all its coloured glory.
yeah. So that's what you've got there. Yeah, what's missing up here on this one, so we won't be doing this one. We've got the one that Lama Zopa Rinpoche wants us to have in the centres is actually one that Jada Rinpoche designed by Jada Rinpoche, who is still just here.
And that's the one at Tashita Meditation.
And that's the one at
Centre.
Tashita Meditation Centre.
In that glass case, if you've ever been there.
Yeah, so why this doesn't have the actual text up
Oh, it doesn't
here.
have the words.
Yeah, so up here, you've got the Buddha pointing to basically the path, and the text that goes up there, which is in Tibetan here, is yeah. So the meaning in English: make effort to destroy it, samsara, enter the Buddha Dharma, eliminate the Lord of Death, that one there, like an elephant destroys a grass hut, meaning over the top completely. I mean, an elephant's not going to leave any bit of grass hut behind. Whoever takes up the practice of Vinaya, which is ethics, with great conscientiousness, so we have to be very aware of the workings of our mind, because all those sneaky things just randomly pop up without us inviting them into the space of our mind. And just like, where the hell did you come from, jealousy? Where did you come from, pride? I didn't invite you. So we need that conscientiousness. So by practicing ethics, so controlling the body's speech and conscientiousness of the mind, as well as our actions, abandons the cycle of rebirth. In other words, abandons this samsaric existence and thus brings an end to suffering, the cessation. So here we have, so the Buddha pointing to that text as this is the way type of thing is outside of all of this. This is samsara, who's outside of that. So this is the way out, basically. And it's very interesting that, so there's different levels of samsara, and the one before you're just about out, it's the last level in samsara, is called the peak of existence. And I remember the first time I heard from, Geshe Tenzin Temple Institute last on Kappa, and he said, we've all been to the peak of existence. We've all been there. All of us have been there. She's like, you mean I was almost out of this? I was almost what? And exactly what went wrong? Self-grasping wasn't eliminated. So not yet eliminated. Yeah, it's tough. You know, just work hard. All those levels of concentrations, been up there in all the God realms. That's the danger. You get caught in that everything going cruisy. And you see that in life, that people who are in that bubble, and then if something goes wrong, it's like they haven't got the resources, whereas those of us who've always been, you know, struggling in our lives, we know we're quite resourceful, right? And so it's like, it's much better, of course, and this is some of the preciousness of our human existence, of having, you know, we know about suffering, we know about all the levels of suffering, we see it in ourselves, we see it in others, but we do also know it's possible to be free of that. So it's the best condition to have, to actually be able to train, to work towards that, because we know we can. I mean, we might doubt ourselves often, but as Lama Yeshe says, disgusting waste of time. Truly, it makes sense, doesn't it, when we think about it like that? And so we just keep going. We just keep going. So we have these, so this is called the wheel of dependent arising, dependent origination, which was the unique teachings of the Buddha about that everything, nothing exists from its own side, that everything is dependent. So our samsara, our nirvana, has all the conditions coming along. We looked at this with looking at the second noble truth, you know, the conditions that come along, our karma and our afflictions that come along. Suffering, it's not like some God somewhere in the sky, that's my childhood version of God, that goes, right, you're going to get a heavy dose of suffering just because, you know, it's not random and it's not, you know, true. It's a result of the conditions that we have created, right? So this is typically why it is depicted in this form, is that you don't have to be literate. Of course, you do have to be visually literate. You have to have it explained to you. But it can be explained by way of analogy, and it is explained by way of analogy so that people don't have to, well, I guess if you want to read the text, you have to be literate in Tibetan. Fortunately, we have those people who are, who've translated it nicely for us. But by seeing this, even once you start to understand what it's all about, by seeing it, it reminds you, oh, yes, that's right. I'm in the grip of the jaws of death, you know, or I'm just going to keep cycling around like this unless I do something different. And so, so it's got many different levels to it. So we can start going through that. So right in the middle, there's a pig, and in the mouth of the pig is a tail of a bird. Pick your bird, and people say pheasant, people say, well, we probably say chooks. Doesn't look like a chook. I don't know if it looks like a pheasant. What does a pheasant look like? Anyway, it's a bird. And the idea, I mean, I think chook works for me. because it's this sort of peck, 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 peck. This is the mind of desire grasping, you know, peck, 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 peck. This is the desirous mind. The pig represents the mind of ignorance. According to my sister who had pigs, they're very intelligent. So it's, what do we say? Anthropomorphization. That word, anthropomorphizing. So it's from a human perspective of a pig. Okay. And then in the mouth of the bird is the tail of a snake, and the mouth of the snake has the tail of the pig. So you can see these are interdependent. So there's different ways that this is depicted. This is one way where the three are interconnected, like one whole like this. The other way is that you have the pig and the tails of the two others coming out of the pig. So in this one, it's saying out of ignorance, the mind of, so the ignorance is what? The ignorance grasping at a sense of me, I, that doesn't exist anywhere when we investigate. So this self-grasping, right? And on the basis of that, desire arises, almost like to feed this self, you know. And this, yeah, so that's why it's got the bird first, the desirous mind first, the craving mind first. We crave to be in existence, for example, because I've got this sense of me, I have to exist, you know, freak out at the idea of death. And then when that attachment, desire energy doesn't get what it wants, then we have a mind of aversion. Or if we get what we don't want, then we've got irritation, anger, aversion, so that in that way we can see an evolution of the three. And the other way is that the two come out from ignorance anyway, because the ignorance is the basis for all our afflictions. So out of those three, then come all the other afflicted states of mind, pride, jealousy, what else? Doubt. They're the typical ones we talk about. And then all the other subsets of those come along. We have the, 20 that we talk about coming on the basis of these three, but it's not comprehensive because we talk about 404 affliction-caused diseases. The Buddha talked about 84,000 afflictions. So we got a lot of stuff. Got a lot of stuff. So it being in the center, it's like, well, that's the start of everything. All our problems start right there in the mind. And then the next one outside of that. So, yes.
So does the snake represent anger?
Yeah, anger, aversion. And again, anthropomorphizing is that we have an aversion generally to snakes. Even us Aussies, who are probably more at home with snakes than a lot of other people, I've heard. We tend to avoid them with good reason. They lash out, they hiss, they lash, they're slimy, sleazy. Yes, yes, this lashing tongue, yeah, of anger. Really, literally, isn't it? Yeah. Venomous, venomous anger. Mm. And then pain, and where's the antidote? Yeah, all of those things. Okay, so so you got the next circle around outside of that. There's one white side and there's one dark side. And so on the white side, you've got beings going upwards. And there's a Buddha up there at the top. So this is making our way out of samsara, going from lower realms of existence to higher realms of existence. So that's the virtue side. So through our practice of ethics, through our virtue, through our wishing to benefit others, we create the conditions to be born as we've discussed, as human or in the God realms. And then on the other side, you've got these poor looking beings just plummeting down below to the lower realms, which is the effect of non-virtuous states of mind, which create the conditions for us to have more intense suffering existences. Yeah. And, you know, in the Hindu tradition, I'm not, you know, I don't know a lot about the Hindu tradition, but enough to say there's this concept that you're always going up, 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 up. But in Buddhism, it's like, well, no, it depends what conditions you create with your mind, when you create in your life. So how can somebody who uses their human life to mass kill others and create torment and, you know, environmental degradation, the whole kit and caboodle, how can they possibly be reborn with the ethics of a human being? And we see this, well, we say, well, it happens, you know, we've got humans who are very unethical, and this is happening more and more because of degeneration of our times. So we've got to distinguish between a precious human rebirth, or we say perfect human rebirth, not because everything's perfect, but we have the perfect conditions to work with. Doesn't get any better than that. And that's what we here have. And then, you know, other human beings whose minds are so taken over by these destructive emotions that they almost can't access any caring, concern, love, compassion, kindness. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it's very limited. You know, so they're more hijacked by the negative emotions, and they cause great destruction. And as a result, plummet down to more suffering. They create the causes for themselves to have more suffering than what they do for others. So that's the idea of that one. That you could be reborn in any of these realms. So the next one around is representing 6 realms, sometimes presented 5, sometimes presented 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here it's 5. And why it's 5 is up in the top left quadrant. Well, it's not quite a quadrant because there's 5. Up in that corner, you can see there's so you got these beings on fluffy clouds. So they're representing being in the pushy God realms, you know, up in the whatever. We don't have Kensington Heights, do we?
There is actually.
Is there Kensington Heights?
Talking about height as in
Where the top people live.
Oh,
yeah.
Where was that?
There's
Peppermint Grove.
Yeah.
So that's Peppermint Grove.
yeah.
And the ones down below them, I mean, the same quadrant. So they're like called, so they're the cushy gods. And then these are sort of like the lower gods. They're called sometimes demi-gods. They're both, there's a hierarchy in the god realms, which is depicted by the arrows going up and down. So they're not free of afflictions. Their bodies are more subtle, so they don't have that obvious physical, etc., clunky pain and discomforts that we have. They've got very subtle bodies. However, their minds are not very pure, as you can see by their fighting with each other. And what they're fighting over, you can see there's a tree. So the roots of the tree are in the lower God realm, and all the fruit is up there in the top God realm. So it's one of those neighbor disputes where it's like, well, whose fruit is it? And they're saying it should be our fruit because we've got the roots of the tree, and you're reaping the benefit. So they have fights over it. It's pretty much what we do, isn't it? So that's what that's depicting. And so here they are. They've got, you know, well, particularly in the upper realms, they've got the abundance and so forth. But you can't say they're undisturbed because they're still fight with each other up there. And so nonetheless, they have a cushy existence that they say, you know, after having this sort of blissful existence for 999 years or however long they live, a week before they're going to die, they get a premonition of their death. And what they get a premonition of is where they're going to be reborn. And it's not going to be a nice, cushy God hell, because they've frittered away all the virtue that they've created that's enabled them to have all these good conditions. So you can see why it's better to be born human and have, we're not, too cushy existence. Yeah, have some, yeah, anyway. So then they go plummeting down to lower realms. So here's why we're all, this can make sense of why we could almost be out of existence, but it'd be a trap. So in a sense, we say that being in the bliss of Nirvana itself is a trap. Right. Well, if we're completely free of samsara, that's another thing. But if we're getting up there and everything's very nice, you don't want to change a thing because it's all very nice, right? And so then when their karma for that runs out, that experience runs out, then they come crashing down. I was trying to think, was it Vidal Sassoon? Was he he's not a writer, he was a hairdresser?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The down door was right.
What?
The down door was right.
Yeah. Kennedy's and all that stuff.
Okay, it was a Vidal de Sousa. He was a hairdresser, right? And he had a chain and of hairdressing. And he went to prison in the end or something. Did he? Anyway, I know he took his life. So it's like he went from the lap of luxury crashing down. Everything fell apart. We can look at examples like that we see. Yeah, that's that sort of existence. So we don't think it's like somewhere mysterious in the sky somewhere. It's the experience you have. Right. So often this is described as like, it could be like psychological states that you abide in. So they're the God realms. And adjacent to them is our human world, human realm. Just humans going about being humans. Of course, I like that there's, stupas and opportunities for finding a way out of samsara, but basically working and, chatting in the house, in the workplace, sort of carrying loads, going about daily business. So that's us humans. Not so cushy, but it's also called the higher realms. So this is the, making your way up to these realms of existence. And so going around clockwise, the next one is you've got these beings who are sort of look like they're falling down and they've got distended bellies. So this is the hungry ghost realm. So you can see there's an abundance of food and so forth, but they can't take sustenance from it, and they're plagued by all sorts of forms of suffering. So here you have like fire and icy mountains and things like that. So the environment is very harsh, and there's intense descriptions of their experience. This is where, so we always take the analogy of water. So water in the God realms is like nectar. In the human realm, we say, well, it's water, it's refreshing, it's cool, it keeps me alive. In the hungry ghost realm, it's like pus, so that they never satiated. And even if they can get the sustenance, it never satiates them. And, they'll go walking towards what is a river, and the earth opens up in cracks, and when the time they get there, it's all dried up. This might be many beings' experience, right? Right? We're in, well, I just think, look at us, Australia's prime for it, isn't it? With the, so much desert. And like when I was in Namibia and the big thorns, so Namibia is semi-desert, the thorns that you'd get in your shoes weren't little thorns. They're like this big. They rip your shoes apart. That sort of experience. So that constant craving. So often we think about the mind of addiction as being that suffering mind of, you're just never satisfied, never satiated. So this is the desire gone totally out of control. And opposite to them is the animal realm. We can see all the animals in there. And generally, the animal experience is one of fear, generally. So you think that, any animal that you encounter, it's like it's on alert 24/7, being hyper vigilant. Are you about to kill me, basically? Especially us big humans, and you're a small being. But is something bigger going to get me? So they're always sort of trying to protect themselves. Often it's said that it's a mind of ignorance that propels you into the animal, predominantly ignorance, propelling you into the animal realm. And so when we think about that mind of ignorance, what we think is that in the animal realm, you don't have, like, a being has very little capacity to develop their mind in comparison to us in the human. We've got infinite capacity to develop our mind. It's not to say that animals can't be trained, and they are trained to do all sorts of things, that we want them to do for the joy or for the benefit of humans. But their capacity to develop themselves, to even consider, being free of existence or suffering, is just like non-existent. That is non-existent. Of course, we do have that sense of compassion, particularly amongst mammals, right? But I don't know if it's just amongst mammals. I mean, are ants mammals? Yeah, but what are they born from? Eggs, are they? Eggs. Okay, because it's womb-born is the mammals, right? But mammals. And so there's a lot more. So if we look at a hierarchy, then the mammals are higher than the insects in terms of capacity to care for others even beyond their own species. Ants will care for each other because they're a community, they work together. Bees, so there's a hierarchy there. So their capacity to develop themselves is quite limited, but then there is that hierarchy of love, compassion that does develop. And you have to say the animals most close to human, like, all the sort of apes and gorillas and monkeys and all of those, very, very compassionate. Horses, cats, dogs.
Guide dogs.
Yes.
And then also the dogs that are used for the therapy.
Yeah.
Dogs. So they're trained.
They're trained.
But then they also have to be aware to notice things.
Yeah.
To protect the person.
Yeah.
So in some ways, are there actions that brings that action?
What they're looking after another, and so what makes it a bodhisattva action is your motivation. So my motivation might be food, or my motivation might be I don't want them to hit me or wrestle me, or But with dogs, at least the dog training manuals I read, they said they want love, or they want, where they give, I suppose, might be the same. Love and food in that order, which I found really interesting. It wasn't food and then it's love first. So, and that comes into the training, that bonding seems to be, I was seeing a dog in training, like I'm a service dog in training the other day. It's very cute. No, so I thought, don't distract the service dog in training. Don't say, oh, hi.
It's not just the breeds of dogs that are chosen, it's also individuals.
Yes, individual
dogs
ones.
is having that potential.
Yeah.
And not just for the training, but for the love part.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, like, when my mother, when I was caring for her and where she was living, down below there'd be sheep, not her, so the people who had that paddock. There was sheep and there were cows. And I was always yelling mantras at at them. And then some would turn around and make eye contact and think, oh, I've got you. I just got you. And others would be like, there she goes again. Not interested. She hasn't got any food. So, we all have our personalities, and maybe there's a connection sometimes like that. But, we can do a lot for animals, in our practice, because really, in a way, they're the closest, non-human beings. They're the closest to us. I mean, we're surrounded by them. So this is where we talk about we talk about psychological states and think, well, hang on a minute, there are actual physical humans and there are actual physical animals, right, in our environment. There are these other entities as well. And then some people are more susceptible to those, or more sensitive to those than others, sort of spirit beings and how many hell beings do you know? But, okay, to give you an example. So you're on a bus and somebody's just raving and ranting and their whole mind it's very distressing, right? And what they're raving and ranting about, it is so distressing. To me, that's a hellish experience. No, I'm not saying that is a hell realm being, but it's a sort of like very, very disturbed being, right? And so I think, well, I can have compassion for that one. Or you see the conditions, the environmental conditions that people might have in the war zones. So if we look at it from that level, where people are suffering hellish existences, I think you'll find you can, right? If it's some sort of, what do you mean you're sort of squashed between two mountains and chopped up and put back, killed every second and, in flaming hell and whatever. So like when they talk about like the fiery hells of Avicii, which is the hottest hell, and that's that sense of like in our motivation for the 35 Buddhas prostrations of saying one tiny fire spark on a body of a hell being is hotter than the entire fire systems of this world, right? It may, you might, by way of analogy, you might be able to say, oh, that's intense. Like, that's beyond my comprehension, intense. What the suffering might be like. And how would I feel it to be having that suffering?
This is stronger impact, especially in all those animals on the export ships.
Oh, those animals, I mean, how hellish is that?
I can't imagine.
They're being squashed together.
Yeah.
And they've been there for how long now?
43 degrees heat.
Exactly. It'd be more than 43 degrees heat on those. And in their own kaka, in their own, like the smell, everything. That's hell.
And no choice.
And no choice. Exactly. No choice. That's hellish. So of course we have compassion for them, and it's just, probably outrage at how us humans can just keep arguing about, bureaucracy while they stay stuck. Yeah. No. Yeah, exactly.
I can't imagine literally.
Yes, I know. Yeah. But that, seeing there are situations like that, to me, that's a hellish existence. Right. Yeah. Gaza Strip, Ukraine.
People just trying to go about their daily lives, they're getting bombed out of existence, they've got no.
Egypt's put up a wall, so you can't
push
escape
back
there.
there.
Oh gosh.
Go over here, we'll push you further and further over here. Like squashing them into smaller and smaller groups.
Yeah, that's hellish. So there's a lot of hellishness. And that is created by human beings is That's all created by human beings. We have so much capacity to just resolve those situations. Just, yeah. So it's, and global warming is a thing. It's getting worse. How many records have we broken now? We keep breaking the day before's record and the day before. I mean, I just think, is Western Australia the most insensible place to live?
They do say that.
Or is that
100 years we'll have to, like, we'll have to, we're going to be having, we'll run out of water, so we have to really think about, we'll be the first city in the world that would have had developed the whole system. But how we live. And
then we're currently building up the desalination plant in north, so northern suburbs. So that, I mean, it's a combination of a lower rainfall, but an increase in population. So it's
Yeah.
one or the other. But Perth was the first place to have the first desal plant, and it was considered a bit wacky at the time, but it was very progressive. It was very much aware of the impact of that.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
Yeah, so 50% of our water, most of our wastewater goes back into groundwater, and then 10 years later, you can so there's a lot of systems to support the population of water. Random.
they talk about zones and having trains that go between, we all live in clusters because the environment.
Environment's so very harsh.
Yeah.
Space and jets and,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, there are other places on Earth where it's like, how much desert there is. And the other extent you have is the cold hells, which right now we might think, oh, the cold hell would be nice, be careful. Cold, yes. Hell, no. We don't want the extreme. Cool, we want the in the middle. So just in, when you read the graphic descriptions of the different realms of existence, it's pretty intense what we can experience in these hellish realms. And I think, like we're saying about the Carol on that ship, a prime example of, as human beings, we do have what capacity do we each individually have? And of course, there's lots of protests going on, and is that making a difference? It's like if everyone involved, the humans involved, could just agree that this is an atrocity, and then it's like, oh, but where are we going to put them? We've got a big country. Just saying, there's lots of pastoral land. We'd actually look after them and save them. Venerable Thubten, when he was here, there was where they had cattle, I think, and sheep. They had a parcel of land where they looked after animals, like at Copan. They have. They're the very blessed, very blessed animals. So to create the conditions for them for future rebirths. I don't know if we can go and do practices around the ship. Where is the ship? Because I thought it was in port, and then they said it was out in the ocean somewhere. Yeah, it's in the ocean somewhere. Yeah,
out of sight.
you're in limbo.
Yes.
Well, yeah, out of sight. There,
Well, it's probably if we let your dog, then we've got to do something for you. We're just, have you out there.
limbo.
Yeah, yeah.
Because concerned with biosecurity, and they didn't go anywhere.
Whose biosecurity though? Not theirs. Sorry. Very sad. Yes. Tragic. Yeah. So, we can see where a mind that is caught up in all of this allows such atrocities to happen. And we can see anyway, we do whatever we can to maybe create awareness, to put our voices in, say prayers, mantras, so forth, and wishing that, no being ever has to be suffering those hellish conditions ever. Mani Padme Hum was always good. So they say, like, say for example, a dead animal, maybe mosquito, any dead animal, and I mean, Lama Zopa Rinpoche says you can even recite, as little as 7 times Om Mani Padme Hum and blow on. That's when you're in their proximity, right? We're not in the proximity of the ship, but if you were to go into the water, and because the water connects, right?
Yeah.
So you go into the water and you recite 10 malas of Om Mani Padme Hum, then all the beings in that water get the blessing, although they're in the ship. So we're up. They probably want to be in the water right now.
But the ship's in connection with water on the back.
Yeah, would help. Or you blow them into the sky. Yeah, as much as you can. So yeah, Om Mani Padme Hum is very good. Of course, Medicine Buddha mantra, very good. If you know any of the long life mantras, White Tara, Amatthias, or any of those, if you know that, I mean, just what you know. But Om Mani Padme Hum is huge. It's huge. It's very powerful. Yes. Yes. If you're going in an animal sanctuary, you probably can blow on them. If you go into an animal sanctuary, you can blow on them. Yes. Or if you get the opportunity to give us water, you blow in the water and in the water. You can do that with your pets. You can do that with, yeah. Oh, the hand. Yes, put on their head. Yeah. Yeah. If you have the opportunity to do that, go for it. Little Buddha. We've got the satsas, stupa, relics. Yes. Yeah. We often do that also when, a being passes, put a stupa on there. Because it's got consecrated with precious objects. Yeah. Yeah, so in Bunbury, where the what do they call them when the cows, like the females? Yeah, they're going to be slaughtered. And so we went and did prayers for them before they were being slaughtered. Yeah. So we were corralled into a corner. It's like Lama Zopa Rinpoche at Kopan with the cows. They put all the feed in the troughs to bring them there so they'd stay, so that they could get all the mantras, all the prayers. So there's a whole section, I think, in the gold book there, Liberating Animals. Oh no, it's in the silver book. It has many, many mantras. It's got a lot of practices to do for blessing of animals. And there's a CD for that as well. It comes as a separate booklet, yeah, as well. So, and it comes as a CD because then you can play it, in your car for all the insects, or yeah, or out, I don't know, loudspeaker, out in the ocean. Why not? If you get the opportunity. I don't know. I don't know how close you can get on a boat with that, to that ship.
I was thinking about Paul's work. He cites a lot of managers.
Yeah.
And the cows just love that. Just love that.
They do. At least they get some Dharma connection on their way out. Yeah. Yes. Yes. If you've received that, it's extra beneficial because that transmission is like an empowerment. It empowers. You're then reciting that mantra. And the other thing, Lama Zopa Rinpoche would have, they had mantra boards. They go out in a boat and put the mantra boards in the ocean. Mantras, yeah. You can be as creative as you like. Yeah.
Oh, well, the other thing is if you can, the water that's being offered, you can offer that.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So
Like
lots of
motivation and mantras and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
It's really cool.
So in Sydney, at Darling Harbour, often the Gyuto monks would come and do a sand mandala, and so I think the first time we offered the sand mandala from at the end of the once I finish the sand mandala and it gets swept away, and then we offered it in the harbour. And then we got cease and desist from Sydney Harbour Foreshore Authority saying we're destroying the ecological balance of the harbour. So then everyone got little things to take home of the sand, mandala sand. So that can be mixed into a paste and put on animals' heads, or anybody's, with the sick, dying, whatever. Yeah. We don't waste a thing. Okay. We're out of time for just now. We can dedicate. And if actually, I'd like to do some Om Mani Padme Hums for, we can think of our dear friend Brian, who had an accident yesterday or Friday?
Maybe the day before.
Maybe the day before. I kept thinking it was yesterday, but it was probably Friday. He had a bicycle accident and he's in Charlie's. He's got a fractured hip and concussion, and that's what they're concerned about. They're concerned about his head. So may he, well, we know that hip fracture is not going to be a speedy recovery, but all the best conditions come along. And given that we all know and love Brian, he gives so much to this place, we all have strong karmic connection with him. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani. Om Mani Padme. Om Mani Padme. Dedications. Page 8. here. Devadi no do da la ma